first of all, Nita, can you just kind of take me through your coaching, teaching history, how many years, and all of the things that you did?
Well, we started, I graduated from Marion High School and went to Central College in Pella and met Dan, and then we were in Boone, Iowa, and for the first year I was a teacher's aide in kindergarten and 6th grade. And then the second year in like 74, 75, I became a 2nd grade teacher in Madrid. And then we moved to Red Oak in the summer of 76. And it's just been our home, since that point. I started out as 4th grade teacher in 76 and went to, just was over at Inman and pretty much did 4th grade. I did a little bit at 3rd grade for a while, and but I did that until we retired in 2010, so 34 years teaching in Red Oak. Then during that time, I was also the cheerleading coach I did football, basketball, and wrestling all at the same time by myself. So we had a lot of fun, a lot of great kids, got to see a lot of fun activities. At that time, I hadn't had those kids in elementary. Now, as I coach, those are the kids that I taught in their younger years. So it's a good transition. Did that until Dan retired in boys basketball, and so that was about 2000. So I did that from like 78 to 2000. Long time, but a lot of fun times. And then about 95, I took over as assistant tennis coach. Paula Odify had been with Dan for a long time, and when he first came, I was always there, so might as well get paid for what I'm doing. But anyway, so I've been doing that since 95 with Dan, and then he took over again with girls basketball, so I'm the unpaid assistant now, and I take care of the paperwork and get the messages out, and I've done the scorebook and announcing every year since he took over in basketball, which he did about 25 years, and then I took a break off, and now I'm back doing that again. So it's been fun.
Yeah, the thing, everybody knows Dan as a coach has had a lot of success, but I thought that kind of the essence of this hidden gems thing is you were always there doing some of the things that people don't notice, like you said, the paperwork and stuff. Now you've been assistant tennis as well. Tell me about tennis, though. Was that something you played during your life, and how did you get into that?
We did not have tennis in my high school at the time. When I went to college and met Dan, that's what he was doing. He was playing tennis. So that's kind of where I learned. I didn't know how to play, didn't really know how to score, but it was fun watching, and I got to do some of that. Then when we came to, there was nothing up until that time, although he was still very active in tennis when we were in Boone. And so then when we came to Red Oak, and the first thing we see are the tennis courts. That was awesome. So I was always there, but I hadn't played. Now, with the Y organizing things, I started playing a little bit more with the women and stuff. We tried co-ed, but he can cover the whole court, so that was helpful. But I'm not a real tennis player, but I know tennis.
Tell me how you split the duties there with the girls and boys tennis right now. I sometimes you'll be at one meet and he'll be at. Is there a certain way you do that?
Well, we just try to look. He needs to be with the team that's going to need him probably the most. So that's where we'll often send him. Sometimes one of the teams, they'll kind of go, well, doesn't he like us? And I go, well, he thinks that you're going to be able to handle this okay. So that's usually what we try to do is split it up that way.
The success has continued for so many years there in tennis. Can you mentioned seeing the tennis courts right off the bat when you got to Red Oak, so maybe that's something, it was already ingrained here, or was that something that you and Dan worked together to like I said, ingrained in the Red Oak athletic culture, I guess?
Well, they had some success with tennis. The problem was it was all one class. So they would only get so far, and then all of a sudden you meet one of the Des Moines teams. And that was the case back, Kathy Walker. That was one of our first ones that we had the Bender girls, but they graduated shortly after. But Kathy was there, and there was a whole crew with Kathy Houston, but they made it as far as to get to state, and then they met up with Des Moines Hoover. It was always something like that they would meet up with the bigger school.
You mentioned some names there, and then you coach their kids. Can you explain that dynamic? That's kind of cool and interesting too.
It is. It's really been kind of fun, to be able to know that, and it's more so Dan, because he had them in high school, and then he gets to have them, their children, afterwards. And it was like having all of the Blomsteads. We started Grace when she was 3. So and then I had her in school, and so the dynamic is there, and it's fun. To see them as they've grown up and how their children. There's a lot of similarities between them.
Who's the next girl or boy to watch in tennis? I know with Kate and Grace leaving, you're just kind of like, what's going to happen now?
Oh, we have some hidden gems in there. So we have some young ones coming up. That we see them coming along with it. We've got Macy Baker coming along. We still have Sarah Behrens. That she's been with us since she was a little girl as well. And so we anticipate it may be a growing year, but I think we'll surprise a few people.
You mentioned we've had, Grace since she was 3 and Sarah since she was, young. That's kind of that's kind of how you continue this, right? You start them young, you get them interested, and they just continue to improve and grow.
Well, that's been the summer program, and that's one of the things Paula Odify had started when she moved here from Fremont, Nebraska, is she started the summer program. And so then Dan took that over, but those were the kids. We start them at, we had the toddler set, the 3-year-olds that are out there, and they may be just doing like what we call walking the dog, pushing the ball along with the racket. But, Gracie'd sit out underneath the tree and just he'd say, Grace, you gonna come? No, that's okay, and she'd tie the clovers together. But, it was getting them ingrained into being a part of the tennis culture.
Yeah, I've heard that story before. It's a good one. Can you talk about moving on from tennis now to basketball? Dan was a coach for boys basketball for so many years, took him to, 3 state tournaments? Yeah. What do you remember from those years?
Oh, madness, because I was doing cheerleading at the same time. And it was just awesome. It was so much fun to be able to do, especially that first one in '83. We had great kids, and my cheerleaders, they were some of my first ones that had gone on and done other things. So it was a crazy time, to have that first time, and then I go again in '90 and '93. Is the same kind of thing, to be blessed to be able to do that,
So you said about 2000 he was done with boys basketball, and then 3 or 4 years ago or whatever, it comes back to girls basketball. Can you take me through that decision? Because obviously that was not his decision alone. You were in on that too.
Well, that and the grandkids, because the daughters were thinking, we were going to be able to spend a little bit more time. Well, that intrigued him, just because it was the parents that came to him and said, "Oh, would you come and coach my daughter?" And that meant a lot to him, to have some dads, and moms come and say that. So, and knowing, hey, quite frankly, it was going to be a good team. We anticipated that, and so it's always let's do it for this long, and we'll see how this goes, and so that's kind of where we're at on that.
There must be another good group coming, because I don't think Dan's one of those coaches who will just leave the cupboard bare, just be like, oh, the talent's gone, I'm going to go. So, but he's still here after, losing one of the best senior female classes in basketball history. So, can you talk about that a little bit? Maybe some growing pains this year, even though it looks like you're really not playing that bad.
Well, they're not playing that bad. I think we just ran into a buzzsaw the other night. But no, and it is. It's a growing, and you know that there's always going to be those growing seasons. And he doesn't ever think that anything's impossible. You know, he's always a positive thinking that this is going to, we can turn this around. And it's just one game, but there's people here, they're young and they're learning, and we have the advantage that a lot of the ones that have been here, they do know the program now. They've been a part of that. The youngest ones are coming in, and they're, it takes a little while to get those younger. But yeah, we hear there's other ones coming, but you never know. Somebody could break a leg. So you always have to have somebody else as a backup.
Well, talking a little boys basketball versus girls basketball. How was but he coached girls in tennis as well. So can you just, and I don't want, this isn't all about Dan, but the transition from boys to girls basketball, did you see any struggles there?
Not at all. I mean, coaching is coaching. Now, the dynamics between females and males, yeah, there's different dynamics. But, they still are wanting to do their best, and they still want to do well. Just how they handle that some days, is different. But, no, he raised 2 daughters as well. So, he pretty much, and he was raised with sisters. So he knows girls and things. He's pretty laid back. People don't realize that. They sometimes think that he's a fire-up guy. Well, he might have been in his younger days, but now, he's more mellow and laid back.
Here we go. Circling out of the whole sports spectrum here a little bit, and you mentioned the daughters. Can you talk about the family a little bit? How many kids you have and grandkids and that stuff?
Yes, we have 2 beautiful daughters. They both played basketball. They both played volleyball. They both played tennis. The oldest, Aubrey, went to UNI, and she's got her master's from Drake. And she and her husband have a little girl, Lulu, that just turned 1, and they live in Ankeny. And they keep us. In fact, she and one of her best friends was a good basketball player, and they did the scouting for us one year, the first year when we went with the girls, and they had done the scouting report, and it was detailed. It was awesome. And then our youngest is Danielle, and she's married to Scott, who they both went to UNI. He was a basketball player there as well. And they have 2 children. They live in Jefferson, and she's a physical therapist, has her doctorate in that. And we have a kindergartner and a soon-to-be 3-year-old. So,
great. They, like you said, keep you busy. Well, kind of in that same spectrum, family life. You kind of reminds me of my wife a little bit, because I am so sports centered. Everything about me is sports. Were you into sports before you met Dan?
Oh yeah. That was ingrained. And now, when I was growing up, I was in the age of where we did not have girls athletics. I went to a school that was more intramural. We weren't the small school. Marion was bigger, and so I didn't get to play basketball. And if we did, it was 3-on-3. So I was guard, and because I couldn't hit the lick. And then, I did more of the cheerleading. That was about all that we could do. And that's what I did at Central. And Central, when I was there, they had national championships in football. And Vern Den Herder, who played for the Miami Dolphins, that's the people that I hung around with. So, yeah, I was always into athletics.
And so, being into athletics, that's how you came across Dan there at Central, I assume. He is from, New Jersey. So, what kind of adjustments did you have to make? What's a New Jersey guy like?
Well, their noses are in the air. We used to joke that if it rained, they'd drown because all the water would go down their nose. No, he was just, we met the first week of college. And we've warned Pete Walker about that, because he's at Central now, and Paige. They are both there. And Jeff. We have several that have gone there. And I don't think it's because of us. I mean, it's just a great school. But we met that first week of orientation, and it was off and on. But, and I don't know. at Central, everybody knew everybody, and you just kind of went with, we still hang with all the Central friends. A lot of them still live in Pella, so we still hang with those guys.
Circling all the way back around to that first question, and I wanted to ask Coach Subert this, and I forgot. You've been so long at Red Oak. Did you ever come close to leaving Red Oak at any point, or was there ever anything out there?
Well, we always looked, to see if there was anything there. You just are always looking to see if there's something bigger out there. Couldn't find anything that would really want to make us uproot everything. I don't think our girls would have gone, because as it was, they were upset when I would take their wallpaper, the Care Bears off the wall and put up big girl wallpaper. They're always going to have their children live in that house, so we couldn't move.
Absolutely. So what is it about Red Oak that has enticed you here and then kept you here?
Well, at first it was just the school. It was very welcoming. There was a big turnover that year, and the facilities were great. It's come to be, it's our home. I mean, it wasn't where I grew up, but I've been here longer than I lived with my parents. So, I mean, this is truly our home. The people are very caring, very inclusive. I think the school district will do whatever they can for you. They're very supportive. In athletics, they seem to understand, what it takes, and it's always a positive. We've got a good group of people that follow, no matter what we're doing.
Great. I'll ask you. I think Dan was maybe a baseball coach at one point too. So you've seen a lot of baseball and basketball and tennis and probably countless other sports. Is there anything? Maybe some big time memories. I know the state tournament trips are pretty cool.
Well, he did baseball when we first got here with Bernie Hutchison, who had won state championships at Norway, and I did the books for that as well. I didn't know a lot of baseball, but that was fun to spend time with all those kids, the French boys, and spent a lot of summers and doing that and traveling, and that's been the fun part, is being with the kids. We are lucky because we get to spend our day with the good kids, and that's what we try to make sure everybody knows. There are great kids in our school, and there's more of them than you'd ever think, and they try their hardest. They may not always be the stars, but they're there every day because they love it, and that's what's fun, is being there with them, and it's our second family, because our other kids have grown up. And they're not with us. So these are our kids.
That's great. So you're both retired as teachers, and I'm not pushing you out or anything, but I'm just wondering, is there even any thought of just stopping all of it?
What would we do?
Yeah, exactly.
This has been our life since '76, is being here and being with the kids and doing. We did that 1 year, well, except for tennis. We were bored to death, because we're not going to take off and move someplace for the winter, because then we would miss our grandkids. So right now, what else would we do?
Good answer. Nita, thank you very much. Anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, it's been fun. We're enjoying it, and there's just a lot of things yet to do, I think.